Hi, I'm Mickey Tettmar. I was born and raised in Toronto in 1934. Grew up there, finally met a man that was in the hospital with a bad back, and he introduced himself. My dad was in there with a heart attack. About 4 months after that, I get a phone call. His name was Sam. He wanted to know if I'd like to go to a country dance. Well, I went to the country dance. He had a dairy farm, so he couldn't get down that often. I only saw him about once a week, and we usually went to a country dance or maybe to some neighbors that had asked us to come. And I think after 4 months, I thought Sam was it, and he asked me to marry him. I married him and moved up to the little farm north of Oakwood, between Queensville and Newmarket. It's 150 acres and a dairy farm. And we were very happy there, but then the barn got struck by lightning, and we had enough insurance to move from Queensville up here to Lindsay. And we bought another dairy farm, and we farmed there for 25 years, and his back kind of got a little worse, and he kind of thought maybe he'd just give up farming, and we just bought a house in Lindsay, and he drove school bus. He loved to drive school bus, and Travelways liked his driving. He was not a smoker, didn't drink, and he asked Sam how would he like to drive and do the tours down to Nashville. Well, Sam thought that was wonderful, and he'd done that for about 15 years, driving back and forth to Nashville. And he loved every bit of it, and then, as I said, he started getting headaches. And this was from helping somebody fix a car, and the hood come down, just hit him in the back. And it developed into a tumor, and he was just in the hospital, maybe a month, and I knew he wasn't coming out, but we had, 23 good years, which I never would have traded. Well, we were close to Oakwood, so I played ball there also. And of course, every Sunday I went to Penile Church. Well, a lot of the men couldn't go because it started at 9 and you wouldn't have your chores done. And we always had fowl suppers, and that was to keep that little church going. Well, Sam would milk the cows early just to go to that supper, and everybody in that district supplied the food. Pies, cakes, and some women cooked a 20-pound turkey besides. And they're still doing it. And I'm still going every time they have a fowl supper. And if it wasn't for the neighbors, the church would never kept going. And Christmas time, one of the neighbors they would dress up as old Saint Nick, and the kids would get the biggest kick out of it. But for a little church, I went to church all my life. But if you could see a fowl supper coming up, and those women will cook a big pot of potatoes, a big pot of turnip, maybe a 20-pound turkey, at least 3 pies, and then wash the dishes afterwards, because we don't have an automatic dishwasher. They do now. So by the time you finished, you wouldn't get out of there to maybe 9:30 at night, and you went to church the next day. But we looked forward to the fowl supper and those women, because it wasn't you just took it out of a tin. You peeled the apples, and everything was fresh. And we had Sunday school. I went down and helped with the Sunday school, but that church is still going today. It's a little church, and it would not survive without neighbors. It's just something I loved. And I loved curling. I took up curling with my second husband, and I never looked back, and then I clogged. First auction sale I went to, Sam brought me a little 29 Chev standard that some guy had in his barn. Well, I could drive a standard car. You could hit the fenders and you couldn't even dent them. I had that car about 10 years. So coming from Toronto up to the city, I think was the best thing I ever done, but I miss Toronto. And it was called Toronto the Good. Well, I smoked at a time, but I don't suggest they do it. I'd like to see them not smoking. I've never had a beer. I just don't. My husband's would maybe have one a thrashing when it was hot. I like a glass of wine, but that's it. I don't know. You got a good man, you don't need anything else. Or woman. And some would say, oh, you ought to try living with my wife. Well, he's probably half the fault. And we had dogs, we had cats, but they never got in the house too much. But the farm, it was quite a different thing to living in Toronto. Because I run a dress shop, and then you just walked out and got on your streetcar. I went up there, and it was a big, you know, it was quite big. We had over 200 acres up there. But I learned to drive the tractor, things like that. But your church is what kind of held all that community. But these women, boy, I'm telling you, they were tough old girls. You baked and you had babies and you drove a tractor for your husband. But it was healthy. Oh, we had lots of fun. Just get a square dance going Saturday and set you up for the week. And now I'm here 85 and I'm still alive. I can't think any more about that. And that's about the story of my life.